Welcome. It's time to let go of the day, to set aside the noise, the screens, the lists and lights. Here, we drift into a slower world, a quieter place where the sands of time move gently and history unfolds not with urgency, but with a whisper. Tonight, we will journey back to ancient Egypt, to a forgotten corner of the Nile Valley, to a pharaoh who dreamed of the sun, who broke from ancient gods, and vanished almost as strangely as he appeared. His name was Akhenaten, and his life remains one of the most curious and softly rebellious in all of antiquity. You may not know him, but he once ruled one of the world's greatest empires. Not with swords, but with sunlight, so settle in. Let your breathing slow, and allow your imagination to wander to a world of golden temples, distant chants, and windblown stone. In this hour, we'll walk quietly through Akhenaten's life, not to judge or solve, but simply to observe, to listen, to rest. Let us begin. Imagine a morning in ancient Egypt. The sky is still pale, like sand washed with water. The river Nile lies quiet, a ribbon of silver light through the land. And above the eastern hills, a soft golden disk begins to rise. Not just the sun to Akhenaten, but the Aten, the visible god, the giver of life. He turns his face to the light, his long, graceful features catching the first warmth of day. He is dressed simply, linen robes, soft and unadorned. The palace around him is not filled with noise or feasting. Instead, there is silence, the kind that holds the breath of statues and the rustle of date palms. You might have walked with him, along corridors of smooth stone, past open courts flooded with sunlight, not shadow, past attendants who speak in hushed tones. This is not Thebes, not Memphis, but Akhenaten, the horizon of the Aten, a city he ordered built in the middle of the desert, carved from nothing, raised to face the rising sun. His home is not like those of his ancestors. Gone are the towering idols, the crowded temples filled with smoky incense. Here, the sacred is light itself, the sunbeam, the warmth, the radiance. Each morning begins the same, a prayer not in darkness, but in dawn. A hymn to the Aten, spoken not in grandeur, but in rhythm. The rays of your light touch the face of all, he may have whispered, or simply thought as he walked barefoot across warm stone. His children stir nearby, perhaps a young daughter giggling softly, perhaps Queen Nefertiti seated by an open screen sketching a lotus bloom. The day will move slowly. Meetings with priests, edicts on tablets of clay, architects showing plans for courtyards that bloom under the sky. But for now, the early light is all. And in this moment, Akhenaten, the pharaoh, the man, feels closest to what he worships, a pure and endless stillness shining quietly on all things. Akhenaten was not born with that name. He came into the world as Amenhotep IV, a prince in a long line of rulers. His father, Amenhotep III, had presided over Egypt's golden age. There were temples in bloom, trade routes stretching far beyond the deserts, and gods, so many gods, watching from every corner of the kingdom. As a child, the young prince likely grew up within the rich halls of Thebes. He would have walked between massive columns carved with hieroglyphs, played beneath sky-blue ceilings painted with stars, and heard the language of ritual echoing in temple chambers. But even early on, something seemed different about him. Artists later showed him with elongated limbs, narrow eyes, a head shaped like the curve of an egg. We don't know if this was how he truly looked, or how he wished to be seen, but the difference is there even in stone. As he came of age, he was crowned as Amenhotep IV, the next in line, and for a while he followed tradition. He honored the gods, especially Amun, the great hidden deity of Thebes. He performed the expected rites, lit the sacred fires, and married Nefertiti, whose name means the beautiful one has come. But slowly, quietly, a change began. He started to speak more often of the Aten, the disk of the sun, visible and real. Not hidden like Amon, not a god with a face or a throne, but something simpler, a beam of light, a warmth that reached all people equally. He changed his name from Amenhotep, which meant Amen is pleased, to Akhenaten, meaning effective for the Aten, a public act of devotion, a quiet rebellion, and then came the boldest move. He left Thebes, left the temples, left the old gods. He chose a stretch of desert no one had claimed, between cliffs that opened to the sunrise. There, he built a new city, Akhenaten, the horizon of the Aten. In just a few years, it bloomed from nothing. A palace, sun temples with open roofs, long avenues lined with altars, and homes for thousands. It was a city built not for power, but for presence, the presence of light. He abolished the old priesthoods, removed Ammon's name from temples, elevated the Aten to near exclusive divinity, and in artwork we begin to see something new. Not just pharaohs towering over captives, but images of Akhenaten and Nefertiti seated beneath the rays of the sun, playing with their daughters, offering flowers, bathing in the beams of divinity. There is intimacy. There's gentleness. There is a kind of peace. But outside Akhenaten, things were shifting. Not everyone welcomed this new theology. The priests of Amun had lost power. The traditions of millennia had been set aside. And then, after just 17 years on the throne, Akhenaten disappeared from the record. No war, no monument to his death. Just silence. In time, his name would be chiseled away. His city abandoned, his sun god forgotten, but for a moment in history, he had tried to rewrite divinity as something simple, radiant, and quietly shared by all. When we speak of Akhenaten today, we speak in fragments. Whispers from stone, faces in profile carved into walls that now stand broken, weathered by sand and centuries. So much of his world has vanished, not in war, but in silence. You see, after his death or disappearance, his memory was not preserved. It was erased. The city of Akhenaten was left behind, abandoned like a dream that no longer served its purpose. Temples were closed, the sunlight faded from sanctity, and the names of Akhenaten and his sun god were removed from records, chiseled away by the hands of successors. Later pharaohs called him the criminal of Akhenaten. They buried his revolution beneath layers of stone and sand, and yet echoes remain. In the cliffs beyond his city, a tomb was carved. It lies quiet in the rocks, unfinished, uncertain. Was it meant for Akhenaten, or for a child, perhaps one of his daughters, or his enigmatic co-ruler? There's no grand burial for him like the Valley of the Kings, no golden mask, no sealed sarcophagus beneath a painted ceiling, just a shadow of a tomb and a lingering question, where did Akhenaten go? And what happened to those who followed him? Some believe his cult survived in secret, its song still whispered under the breath, its sun disk etched softly on shards of pottery found far beyond the city's walls. Others wonder about his influence. Some historians have drawn parallels, cautiously, between Akhenaten's sun worship and later monotheistic traditions. Not direct lines, but faint ripples. Curious coincidences in the flow of spiritual history. His hymn to the Aten, preserved on temple walls, reads with a tone not often found in ancient religion. It speaks of warmth, of daily rebirth, of love for all things touched by light. When you rise, they live. When you set, they die. You are the breath of all life, simple, poetic, and gently human. And there's something about that amid all the grandeur of Egypt, the pyramids, the gods with falcon heads, the endless rituals, this one pharaoh chose something quieter. He looked up and saw divinity, not in thunder or gold, but in the calm and constant warmth of the rising sun. A god without temples, a god that needed no statues, a god that simply was, and perhaps that's why he was forgotten. because his belief did not fit in stone. It lived in light. And when the city emptied and the sun kept rising, there was nothing left to hold, nothing but questions, and a soft, strange beauty that still glows at the edge of memory. To understand Akhenaten's world, we must let our minds drift outward, beyond the limestone courts and open altars of Akhenaten to the wider Egypt he once ruled. It was a world built on rhythm, the rising and falling of the Nile, the cycle of planting and harvest, the procession of gods across temples and time. Most Egyptians, whether farmer or artisan, woke with the sun and slept beneath a sky littered with stars. They lived lives shaped not by royalty, but by survival, by the careful tending of soil, the balance of offerings and hope. The temples were central, not just spiritual, but practical places of food storage, education, and community. And above them, the gods. There were many. Amen, the hidden one. Osiris, lord of the dead. Isis, the mother. Thoth, who wrote with the moon's wisdom. Hathor, who danced and soothed. And dozens more, each with stories and faces, each tied to towns, trades, emotions, and stars. People didn't just believe in gods. They lived with them. In every birth, there was a prayer. In every death, a ritual. In every drought, a plea. The divine was woven through everything. And into this ancient, stable tapestry came Akhenaten, pulling a single golden thread. To the people outside his city, his reforms were puzzling. The Aten was beautiful, yes, but distant. It had no mythology, no healing temples, no family of gods to explain floods or fertility. And so many simply continued with the old ways. Quietly, even as the pharaoh's priests were dismissed, many villagers still drew the eye of Horus, still whispered the names of Isis and childbirth, still lit lamps to the ancestors at night. In time, Akhenaten's own family would fracture. His daughters would disappear from records. Nefertiti, perhaps rolling beside him, perhaps vanishing altogether. And somewhere in this drifting world of change, a child was born. A boy named Akhenaten, who would later reverse it all, changing his name to Tutankhamun and returning Egypt to the old gods. When Tutankhamun died young and his tomb lay hidden for centuries, he would come to overshadow the strange Sun King before him. But Akhenaten never truly vanished. His city may have crumbled. His name may have been struck from stone, but the sunlight never changed. It still rose each morning, falling silently across the ruins of Akhenaten, touching the same cliffs, warming the same dust. And through the shifting sands of time, his story still hums, quiet, half-remembered, like a hymn to a god with no face, no temple, only light. And now, as you rest here at the end of Akhenaten's journey, you may find yourself holding a gentle kind of wonder, not for conquests or treasures, but for the quiet choices that ripple through history. A man who looked at the sky and saw something eternal, a city built not for power, but for presence. And in his brief, soft rebellion, a reminder that even in great empires, there are those who turn inward, who seek stillness, who listen for the light. May your own night be peaceful, and may the sun, when it rises, find you in rest. Good night.